A British aid worker is amongst 7 people killed in what's being reported as an Israeli airstrike last night.
Well, staff from World Central Kitchen died when their car was struck by a missile in Deir al-Balah. Well, Israel's military said that it is conducting a thorough review into the tragic incident. The charity has released this recent video of the Australian victim.
We're at the Deir al-Balah kitchen and we've got the mise en place. Tell us a little bit about it, Chef Ali.
This is the mise en place to cook the rice.
Indeed. So this is the beautiful, fragrant, aromatic rice that will be served today from Deir al-Balah kitchen. Thank you.
Well, let's bring in Noga Tarnopolsky, who is an independent journalist and joins us live from Jerusalem this morning. Noga, really shocking and very tragic news. Are we expecting all of the aid workers to be named this morning?
We hope so, although that will come from the World Central Kitchen. They have said it's 7 of their workers who are dead, foreigners and locals. So it's going to be a mix. The Australian who, tragically, we just saw the video, a British citizen, and a few others. But that will depend on how the organization notifies the families.
And it could be particularly problematic for the Israeli government, couldn't it, Noga? Because in order for charities such as this to enter Gaza, they have to have the green light from Israel themselves, and presumably Israel would know their location once they have entered Gaza. So how can they possibly sort of explain what's happened here?
I don't know, but it's not being denied, which is significant enough. There have been many accusations against Israel. You'll probably remember at the beginning of this war, the Al-Ahli hospital, an Anglican hospital that had a terrible bomb, and Israel was accused immediately, and Israel almost immediately at that time said, it's not us, we weren't operating there. So it's notable that that's not what has happened now. The Israeli army acknowledges that it was probably an Israeli strike that killed these aid workers, and that it is in the middle of an investigation looking into it. It's just been a few hours. But the non-denial I take basically as an admission. And what we haven't heard yet is what they were doing there. So that we haven't heard the army say, for example, we regret the error, but the bomb was aimed at X, or we thought we were doing Y. So we just don't know yet what may have happened.
And of course, Israel very keen to move the narrative on. Israel says its military has pulled out of Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City after a 2-week raid that has left most of the major medical complex in ruins. Now, they go further to kind of justify what they're doing, saying they've killed 200 terrorists, detained 900 more. They say they found weapons and intelligence throughout the hospital. They also go on to say, well, the reason we went in is because Hamas and also Palestinian Islamic Jihad are entrenched in there. But of course, the rebuttal from Hamas is that decomposed bodies have been found, that Israel is complicit in war crimes by using bulldozers to exhume bodies. There is no doubt, though, that international opinion is hardening against Israel.
There is no doubt about that international opinion is hardening against Israel. There's also no doubt that Hamas is a terror group. It's a recognized, known terror group. And they use hospitals, they use schools, they use private homes as their bases. In fact, when you listen to interviews with Hamas commanders, Hamas representatives, they refer to the Shifa base. So that's not really a question. Yesterday, Israel withdrew 2 days ago from the Shifa hospital. It doesn't have anything to do with this tragedy involving the workers of the World Central Kitchen. And yesterday there was a lengthy press conference by the Israeli army displaying a lot of this stuff that they found there. It's one of these things where as the war grinds into, now it's going to be 7 months, we're finishing 6 months of war this week. What happens is that the images are no longer shocking. So the Israeli army is trying to, I guess, make a point that it's fighting against terrorists, but showing international journalists for the 4th, 5th, or 8th time weapons hidden in cribs, for example, or in birthing centers in a hospital. doesn't have the same effect because we know what Hamas is. We know that Hamas is a murderous terror group. What we're trying to understand is what is Israel trying to achieve? And that is what is becoming more elusive.
Absolutely. Well, Noga,
I would want... Sorry.
No, I was just going to move on now because for the first time over the weekend, the families of hostages have openly called for Netanyahu's resignation. What do you make of that? And what's the feeling on the ground in Israel?
That is quite a big deal. The bulk of the families of hostages who still remain in Gaza, and let's think about it, these are Israeli civilians, by and large, who were stolen out of their homes by this terror group, and the Israeli government has not found any way to bring them home. From what we hear over here, these people are dying day by day. So the fact that the movement of the families of these hostages has moved away from just saying bring them home and is now saying, Mr. Prime Minister, you failed. That is a big deal because it puts them on the same plane as a larger protest movement, which says that Netanyahu should call immediate new elections and that this government is no longer legitimate to rule Israel.
But Netanyahu is doubling down. Now, we also know Israeli warplanes struck the Iranian consulate in Damascus yesterday. Now, that is very significant because essentially involving Iran here is doubling down, isn't it? And Netanyahu, very entrenched in his position here. Of course, Iran is known to sponsor those terrorist groups such as Hamas, Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad as well.
Yeah, I mean, it does look like an escalation. It certainly is a hit. It may have been an opportunistic escalation, by the way. It may have been that Israel got intelligence informing it that this particular very senior general was in the consulate building in Damascus at this time and that they jumped at the opportunity. I'm not sure how planned this was, but either way, it is targeting a senior Iranian who has been spearheading the attacks against Israel from Lebanon principally, but also from Syria. So it's an escalation from the Israeli side. It's an acknowledgement also of what you just said, that Iran is the nation that sponsors all of these groups that have been attacking Israel. And it may be Israel saying, we're not just going to restrain ourselves to the proxies, we're also going to go and try and get, the landlord of this whole operation. Iran is promising a retaliation, and we don't yet know what that may mean.